All right, so we are continuing with 6.3 Honors Algebra 2 Pre-Calc in Pre-Calculus. And what we're going to be talking about now is we're going to be talking about unit vectors. So we've already established that, that the magnitude of a vector v is written as this weird like double absolute value of v, right? So if the magnitude of v is 1, it's called a unit vector. Sorry, inching over. It's called a unit vector. Sorry, limitations of my whiteboard calendar acting as my whiteboard. So any vector that has a magnitude of 1 can be called a unit vector. So you could have a bunch of different unit vectors, right? So there could be a unit vector that is 1 unit in the horizontal positive direction, right? So as an example, right? So this vector right here that goes from 0, 0 to 1, 0, right? That, I'm going to call that vector u. That's a unit vector, right? Because if you wrote u, it would be 1 unit horizontally and no units vertically, right? That would be an example of a unit vector. In fact, that unit vector actually has a name. We actually call this unit vector the I unit vector, not to be confused with imaginary numbers, so that's good times. So the unit vector in the horizontal direction, so the unit vector in the positive horizontal direction, right, meaning going to the right, horizontal direction is vector I, right? And you can write it as the imaginary I. The big thing is it has the hat over it. It's not, like if you want to write it as a cursive I, you can. Most books kind of write it as this weird, like not a cursive I, but also kind of like looks like a J. It's weird. Mine honestly usually looks like an imaginary I, but I put the vector on top of it to cover my bases, so it's clear that it's not imaginary. There's also, you can have a unit vector that's 1 unit in the positive horizontal or positive vertical direction, and that's called the j vector. So the vector j, right, is the unit vector that is 0, 1, right? So that's the unit vector in the positive vertical direction, right? So direction is j with that vector hat on top of it, right? So those are the two common ones. But you could have lots of unit vectors, right? You could have a unit vector. Right, you could have a unit vector that goes out at a 45-degree angle, right? If you did, what would actually happen, and you weirdly know this from the unit circle, right? If this radius were 1 unit, you know the coordinates at pi over 4. It's root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. So this unit vector would actually be root 2 over 2 in the x direction and root 2 over 2 in the y direction, right? Like you can have, there are infinite unit vectors. You could have a unit vector that points out this way or this way or this way. All it means is that their magnitude is 1, right? But these two unit vectors are going to end up being important later when we talk about a notation called IJ notation that I don't particularly care for, that is similar to component form, but you'll see that books use it somewhat interchangeably. They're both fine. If I have a preference, I pick component form. But when we talk about IJ notation, the idea that the I is the single unit in the positive x direction and the j is the single unit in the positive y direction, right? So like this goes to the point to 1 and this goes to 1, that's going to end up mattering. But again, a unit vector by definition is just a vector that has a length of 1 unit because math people are super creative in naming things.